I acknowledge it's weird. Okay. For the record, we are recording.
Oh.
Yeah.
Hi,
So-
weirdo. How are you doing?
You just said hello to me like 5 minutes ago, for like an hour.
Oh.
Um.
Yeah. Well, it's not like an hour. What the heck?
Well, we've
What
been
the hey,
on
bruh?
Discord for about an hour now.
We have not been on Discord for about an hour.
Oh.
It's been like,
Hey, bud.
huh?
Buddy.
Hey,
Bucko.
Okay, I remember. I got set up at 4:17.
Oh, okay.
That's when I got set up.
And I said almost an hour.
It is not yet 5 o'clock. Do the math.
Which is why listeners would go back and check the record. I said almost an hour. And if it's not almost, I will edit this video to make sure that almost sounds there.
On that hour.
If that's not the case, I will go back and make sure I put almost there, so that way you're wrong. I will edit the video. I will edit history to make sure you're wrong.
What are you, politic fact? Huh? Fact check, half true. It's entirely true. Well, we're gonna say it's half true.
I'm gonna edit the video
quibble over here
to make sure that reality doesn't match your reality. All right. So
you're the type of guy who deletes tweets, aren't you?
Oh, absolutely. I'm the type of guy who deletes Twitter off my phone. Also, you don't even have Twitter, so don't try to act like I'm some sort of like.
Neither do you. Why are you throwing stones here?
Exactly. Like your house is. I mean, it's brittle glass.
I don't have a house. I'm homeless, so I can throw all the stones I want.
That was the same. That was a dig and also a burn at the same time.
I do sacrifice throws, basically. That's what I do. That's my favorite move.
Interesting. And that is your favorite move in jiu-jitsu. Anyway, it's a whole separate thing.
Kinda, yeah.
Okay. So, to quickly give
viewers are wondering what the heck is this intro.
Would you want to just
note our previous intro before technical difficulties was even more bizarre?
Yeah.
That episode will be released separately.
If you can imagine, that was way more weird.
Yeah.
But
now everybody's wanting to watch it because they're like, well, what could be more weird than?
But before you go watch it, finish one out all the way to the end. Thank you, like, subscribe, all that jazz, comment, all that good stuff.
Hey, we did a thing. We did the thing.
What thing? Oh yeah, like and subscribe.
You're supposed to say, but we don't say because we're
amateurs. Ah, look at that, Jinx, bud. So I just peeked in over you guys' ear. I got so excited there. Okay, so today's topic. I've been interested in, well, call it cultural topics, and that's broadly defined. I guess in the maximum way you can utilize culture, I've been very interested in that. Okay. And one of them that is actually quite important to me is food. And so I started thinking about, okay, well, what's my favorite anime? What anime does food play a huge role? And I mean, shocks, every anime ever, literally every anime ever has a thing about food. I mean, the whole thing is food porn, essentially, with the anime.
Yes, and it's only when you're hungry that you watch said food porn.
Exactly. And I was thinking, okay, I'm like, well, since food is a cultural is a cultural aspect. I mean, is a cultural aspect, period. But it has such staying power in an interesting way because it evolves essentially. I started thinking about how culture is built in Isekais, essentially, with from the aspect of food, from the angle of food. And it's a very fitting episode today because I am starving. Okay, so I'm like already watering. Like if you see, like you can tell from the thumbnail. And also Jake makes these thumbnails, and my goodness, this is just like, I love it. It's so wacky. So first of all, would you like to? Oh, I love this. Would you like to talk about the art that is your thumbnail today? Please explain what that means to you.
Well, I was originally gonna try to be like, oh, well, let's craft something myself, but then I found an a scene from a Ghibli film. I forget. I think it was what is it? Spirited Away, I think. Someone's gonna be screaming in the comments, "You idiot!" And that's fair. I am an idiot, but you're watching this idiot.
Get owned.
Think about that. Anywhoozles, I was like, "That's perfect." You know what's even more perfect? Putting our faces on it.
Oh,
everyone's
cool.
just lucky I didn't find 2 cute anime girls and put our heads over it, so everybody's traumatized.
Yeah, I'm.
You're lucky it didn't get worse.
I'm very glad that that's the case. That you did not make us.
Be honest, you would have laughed your butt off.
I would have laughed, but also I would not have wanted that to be out there in the universe. Now, this in the permanent universe. But that would have been very funny. But anyway, so wacky thumbnails, and this is, first of all, he's a wacky. Our whole channel's wacky. So let's chill on the singing.
I'm the soundboard.
You've been doing a lot of singing in podcasts recently. Do you want to talk about that?
I'm singing.
That was a tongue-in-cheek thing. Okay, can we not sing on the podcast?
That was an elf reference, by the way.
Is this an American YouTube channel, or is this about anime? Is it about movies or anime? Tell me. Exactly.
I'm singing. We're singing.
Are we gonna?
I'm with my dad, and we're singing.
Are we gonna get somewhere on this channel today? Okay.
When do we get anywhere ever, dude?
We reach conclusions that helps me.
Trips, we're spinning around in a cornfield. We never get anywhere.
We do.
You have this
sometimes
expectation that I'll grow, quote unquote, and improve, quote unquote.
Yeah.
When that's an unfair expectation for me.
I think it is not a bizarre expectation, first of all, and also, what? So you're owning the not growing portion of this?
Exactly. I'm glad you accept me for me.
I do not accept you for you at all. Actually, I do not accept your static nature. I'm more on. All right, I'm more on the side of you that you know you want to be. I am more on that side. I'm more on the side of you that grows, that wants to be better in life. I'm in that guy's side.
Like an annoying
you right now. Speaking of weed,
I just undermined your entire existence right there. I wish the audience could see your face when I I slid the knife between the ribs, and you're just like, crap.
Yeah, that was painful, and I would like to move on from this right now. Thank you.
Fine.
All right, food.
I'm singing.
Oh my goodness.
You walked down so sad. I reduced to him holding his head in his hands. Are those tears?
These are actual tears. I need help. People on this YouTube channel, like, someone watch this. Anyone who's watching this, please send help.
I don't know about you, but this is making my day. This has made my day at least 35% better.
This is so bad. Like, you are making your day better at my expense. What kind of friendship is this? Every week.
I'm a bully. You know this.
Every week I'm stuck. I'm stuck with you every week. Every single
Okay, don't give me that Hobbesian bullcrap. You're here willingly.
No, I'm not here willingly. I'm here against my will.
But, anyways.
I'm here against my will, and listeners will know that I'm here against my will.
Okay. You are not. You're not.
You're right.
Just because I'll find you and I'll bust into your house and make you do this does not mean you're here against your will.
You're right.
Can you edit that part out?
You're right. You're right.
Said no more.
No. You're right.
Crap.
Anyway, moving on.
Anyway, let's go.
All right.
Come on.
Food and anime. So, I guess to ask you, what is in all your anime years so far? What has been the most striking thing in relation to food they've observed watching anime.
That they spend half the budget on making me as hungry as possible. Watching them make it. That I'm only being half unserious in that statement. Actually, they always make the food look amazing, and it actually represents a tonal shift in anime. Oftentimes, I find. So if you want to represent like a character that's going through crap in life, just have him have to do like cup ramen or something like that. Like that represents true like, oh, he's going through crap right now, isn't he? And it's also very ritualized too. Right? It's like every single time the meal's prepared, it's like Thanksgiving dinner for us over here in the West.
Yeah.
And so I find that very... I think there's a lot of cultural stuff baked into that the idea of meals eaten together must be special in a sense.
Right. One of the clips she showed me that actually kind of got me interested in Kaguya-sama Lover's War is the... You should look this up on YouTube. Actually, it's actually it's a fun thing to watch. The English dub of this, the English dub of the Kaguya-sama version, where I forget her name, the pink-haired girl,
Chika.
Yeah, goes to
Fujiwara Chika.
Oh yeah, Fujiwara. That's right. She goes to get anime. She goes to get ramen at a local, hole in the wall.
Oh yeah.
Ramen shop.
The Ramen King.
Exactly. And so the reason I bring that up is for three important observations. The first one is that food is accessible, and that makes and also an avenue through which a person can, I guess, a character can have a personality. So, for example, like the guy with the glasses, I forget his name. Yeah. Entirely unimportant. Like
ramen guy, basically.
Yeah, his character means nothing, right? But in the areas where he I guess in the scenes he was put in the show, had to do they had to do with food, and he was so distinct in his character. Like his character is so much more distinct because of the food. Now, the reason that's important is when you think about Isekais, the first thing they try to do is make the point, like the first thing they try to do to make a point of like, oh, we're in a whole different universe other than like the obvious like powers or whatever, is in the choice of food. Perfect example of this is Demon School. Iruma-kun has best friends in Demon School.
Oh my god, you get worse by the day.
All right, can you correct me, please?
Tumor by any chance in your brain somewhere? Just asking for a friend.
Stop. I bruise easy. All right, correct me.
Welcome. It's called Welcome to Demon School, Iruma-kun.
Yes, thank you. That show has, I guess, to further the point of the culture of demons, we see just the absurd, and that is an isekai for all intents and purposes. I mean, it's a whole different world for the guy.
Actually, that's a good point. Huh. Didn't think of that. Good job.
Well, excuse me. Thank you. Oh, yeah, I'm working on that. But you got points. Like the point they're trying to make, they're making the point with the food.
That's actually very interesting. So it's like kids, when they go to like a foreign cuisine restaurant, right? They are always so reticent to try new things, right? And so that's why a lot of restaurants will have like a kids menu or whatever with American food on it. And this is because children especially are very, very like, I don't want to try new things, right? And so, I think it's the same thing to a certain extent with anime. Like a lot of times in isekai, the food is very similar to that of our world, or the character is bringing their food to that world.
Right.
And
I
so, in
love.
a way, food and cuisine are like the greatest ambassadors to ever be, in a sense.
I love that point because, and the reason that point you made is very important is that, in a way, what is being transferred over, say from one world to another, and vice versa, is the techniques to make the food. So in Urumaqun, for example, we see like jelly, whatever. You see like fried food, and you would think that maybe in a different world of demons, they would have come up with different techniques on how to make food, given the fact that their environment. So your environment forces you. Your environment gives you your ingredients, and you essentially cooking is making do with what you have, essentially, using technique, using knowledge of chemistry or whatever, and then you come up with something that people eat. And so you'd imagine that in a different world, you can have you just come up, your techniques in food and cuisine will be entirely different because it's so, it is almost cultural selection to the max, right? Where you live, or geographical selection, where you live dictates what you eat and what kind of techniques you have to come up with to manage the food you have and extend it over time, given that scarcity.
I actually have a good example here from the real world. So my grandparents live in western North Dakota, right? And for those who don't know, North Dakota is indeed a state, is indeed a place.
In the Northern Hemisphere.
Yes. But it is geographically isolated to the extreme to an extent, right? Almost as much as Alaska is, sort of, right?
That's actually a good point. Yeah, I guess it's a really good point. I've been there.
It is. And my mom, growing up, would describe how at the store, during the summers and the warm months, you would get squash, tomatoes, basically anything you can grow locally or in a nearby state, so like Montana or something like that. And then in the winter, you got canned goods basically, and that's it. And that's just so all the food they have and all the food they eat is very much just based around like what they can get locally, right? And that's the same for every culture. It's just that transportation has made it more diverse. To this day, my grandpa, for example, will not eat certain types of meat because there are whole winters where he had to go eating basically the same dang thing over and over again.
Yeah. Oh, that's a wonderful point because even if you watch, anime shows or anime, there is an emphasis on diversity of food. Right? And well, first of all, that just says a lot about Japanese culture. Even if you've been to I've not been to one of them, but I can imagine like a classic Asian cuisine has like multiple courses and like there's soups and there's broths and there's there's a chewy stuff. It's a whole ordeal.
It's a palate.
Exactly. And that carries over into different isekais. So I guess my fundamental punchline is this. I guess it's a question to you. What show uses food as a wonderful tool, I guess, to create a culture? And two, why is it what would you explain that choice? Why is food the way to go, essentially, to make that point?
So the one show that immediately comes to mind is not an isekai, but it is a action shonen seinen comedy thriller. I don't know what you would even describe it as. Slice of life. Called Golden Kamuy. Now, Golden Kamuy is a very interesting show for the fact that it is based during the Showa period, I believe. It was just after the Russo-Japanese War in, I believe, 1905. Yes, the Russo-Japanese War occurred in 1905. So it's set a couple of years after, so around like 1910. And during this period, the Japanese were effectively colonizing Hokkaido. which is the most northern large island of Japan. The Kuril Islands and the Sakhalin Islands and all that stuff are further north, but that's like the biggest one there. And you can think of Hokkaido as being kind of the Alaska of Japan in the real sense. And on Hokkaido, you have the Ainu people, which are an indigenous group there that were displaced by Japanese colonization and settlement. And so I won't go and describe the entire show because that would take forever. But basically, a former Japanese soldier is gold panning up there, again, the Alaska of Japan, and he begins interacting with the Ainu in a utterly bizarre, wackadoodle sort of treasure hunt anime. It's a hoot and a half. I highly recommend the show. But in that process, this little Ainu girl he basically follows around teaches him how to produce all the local Ainu dishes and make them sound pretty dang good, even though it's things like, squirrel brains or, mashing up the entire squirrel and just all sorts of stuff. And that goes a very long way in describing, well, not only the level of their culture, not insulting them, but they're a hunter-gatherer culture that's not very settled, although I think they did have agriculture, but you know what I mean. So they're not a very advanced culture, technologically speaking. They're very much we eat every part of the buffalo type of culture because they have to be. And they're very much about reusing and using as much as they possibly can, which is related to the previous point.
Wonderful. You've recommended this show to me, and I've not gotten into it.
It's kind of like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure in some circumstances.
Art style or in?
Just in the situation sometimes. I'm like going, what is going on?
There was a show that, we saw something about the jumping hippos or something like that. Like the...
Oh, that was Saibiko Bisco.
Yes, that was a fun one. Anyway, that was a sidebar.
Probably one of the most disappointing anime I've seen in a while because it started out so great and then ended kind of meh.
Is it done?
Yeah, it's done.
Oh, okay. But while you were talking, one thing came to mind for me. I guess a few things came to mind for me. And then an analysis of a show can be taken from the angle of food. So essentially, what is scarce dictates how a culture is formed, right? So, and this is perfectly shown in Dune, where the whole tribe, Fremen tribe, forms their whole culture around what is scarce. Water. I mean, it is the spice, but water essentially. And you can view a lot of Isekais through that angle of what's the thing that's most scarce in this anime, and this actually goes broader than food, but food essentially is the easiest one to talk about it with. What is it that's most scarce? That dictates the culture, and even I guess the way you can see how important food is in a culture is by the introduction of foreigners. Now, it's funny that it's like fish and water, right? Like, how's the water today? Water? What is water? Right? That common trope is so true when you consider introducing foreigners into a culture and seeing how they react to your food. Yeah, I guess I'm just fundamentally, even though this podcast you can tell, trying to put it together in why is it important? Even, I guess, do you know any shows about food? Like food shows?
Oh, there's plenty. Actually, did I pull it up?
It'd be funny to see if there's like a Isekai food
There are
cooking show.
legitimately tons of them. So there's Restaurant in Another World.
Holy buckets! Okay, I'm actually interested in this. This is gonna be.
Let me pull up just a basic list here.
Okay, you can be entirely unprofessional, but I think I'm actually my research on this one to talk about this.
Well, it's not just isekais. Like you have one second. CBR, your website's slow.
Yeah.
So you have Campfire Cooking in Another World with My Absurd Skill, which was just released this past year. You have Restaurant in Another World, which has like 3 seasons. Food Wars is an infamous one.
I've heard about that one.
Yeah. And it's all just like, how is it? It was a one called, I think it's like Pastry Chef in Another World.
Oh, wow.
Like, no crap. I'm just like, it's absurdly common actually to have this. Where?
Interesting.
How does Isekai not have its own category at this point in time? I'm just looking through the Crunchyroll genre list, and they don't include Isekai, and I don't really understand why.
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah.
But yes, that's. I guess my thoughts on this are not even that refined, so I would love to do research on this topic.
Yeah, it's
I guess the question I'm trying to answer. It's very much a
Japanese thing, though, because you gotta think about it in the fact that Western shows don't focus on food hardly at all, from what I can tell.
No,
because I don't think about it.
But it's so prominent in anime.
Yes.
It's so prominent in all the animes, but it becomes.
Yeah, I can't think of a like. It's just like a It's like an essential part of their cultural exchange, I guess.
Yeah.
And
yes.
I, for the life of me, don't really understand why it's so included. But then again, can we ever really even describe why anything's like included in the culture per se?
Right.
It's not like Japan was like particularly poor in the past. So, for example, if you go to like China, they have some incredibly wacky recipes. Like, they'll eat bats, they'll eat mice, they'll eat just about anything over there. And a lot of that has to do with that historically, China was very, very, very poor. And so that combined with a very large population meant that people had to just kind of eat what they could get. Right. And so that's been passed on today with there's one recipe called the three squeaks.
Oh no.
And if you have a weak stomach, walk away right now.
Yeah. Actually, let's just put a pin in that.
Don't mention it. Don't say it.
Yeah, let's not.
You're gonna Google it now, and they're gonna hate me anyways.
All right, I didn't say it. Save us all the trouble.
I win. So you'll take baby mice, and you have a sauce. So it's called three squeaks because the mouse squeaks when you pick it up, squeaks when you dip it, and squeaks when you throw it in your mouth.
Awesome. That was so much fun to hear. Thanks a lot, Jake.
Now, granted, the fact that the Nigerian over here is going, what? Why would you do that? Actually says a lot about your culture, too.
Nigeria does have... I'm really apologizing to listeners and to you right now because my thoughts are not formed. Because...
Mm-hmm.
This thing, like, so there are some legitimate Nigerian food that if you see you'd want to run thousands of miles away. But if you taste, you're like, whoa, that was good. I mean, stinks up the wazoo. It has a weird texture.
Mm-hmm.
And is an acquired taste. But in the preparation of it, it comes to life. This is why I'm almost always surprised when in anime there's this like emphasis on the sharing of a meal because it's entirely magical, right? Essentially, like you just put things together, and through chemistry and fire, you have something that people can share, and that bonds people together. That builds cultures. That makes money.
I guess on like an evolutionary basis, like I guess the sharing of a meal signals prosperity within the tribe. Or within the family unit, whatever you want to call it, right? Because the fact that you can sit down and prepare the meal together and eat together means that A, you're not competing over the food to such an extent that you just have to grab what you can and run. But B, it also signals that your group is successful enough to be able to get food. And that therefore the bonds that you are now sharing are worth keeping. Now, note, I have no clue if that's true or not, but I'm just,
It makes sense to my hearing. I'll just say that.
But...
yeah. Awesome. Well, that's all I have. I want to go into WoW and WoW. I have more to say.
That felt like an incredibly short conversation.
It is a shorter one. It's 30 minutes, which is fine, I think.
I think it's fine, too.
We can revisit this topic
that cut me off
later
guard.
on.
Usually we're like, someone's going, dude, I got a family.
Yeah,
I gotta go.
Please, I got a family to feed. My kids are waiting for me.
We've been here for days. Deliver us.
Yeah, I again, that's, I guess that's all.
It's one of those unanswerable questions to a certain extent. Like, why? I guess we can do more. Maybe it's a homework assignment. Like,
that is a homework assignment.
Go and look up, like, why does Japanese media in general put such an emphasis on food? Like, I've seen some K-dramas, for example. They don't really have that either.
Yeah, it is just, I guess it's more of a research question than it's like a discussion question.
Yeah.
But I am very, very curious because there is something here that I'm probably just not seeing. Because,
well, I will say that the Japanese are not. There's a core Japanese food group that they emphasize in every single anime I've seen. Right, the noodles and all that stuff. Right.
Interesting. Yes.
And that's mostly it's a rice thing because rice is like the staple food of Japan. There's a lot of seafood because islands, duh. But there's also a good mix of other meats because the Japanese islands aren't so small that there's not mountains and forests and stuff like that they can hunt in as well, right? And so, and all these come together because, it's a modern world, and therefore people from all across Japan can come together and share the foodstuffs, although there's still regional specialties. But then they're also not shy about bringing in food from the outside world. They like hamburger steak a lot, apparently, in anime.
Yeah. And even, I'm ready to hear of Luffy, who's constantly asking for meat all the time. Like, that's what he eats.
Yep.
I think... So, okay, I guess if I have to summarize what was going through my head at the moment, I think the food that is most interesting on shows are food that travels through distance, and that's more shown through technique. So, even like I said before, you observe even in Welcome to Demon School, Iruma-kun.
I'm so proud.
Thank you. Even that show.
Pat yourself on the back there, bud.
I literally did. Stop me. Fight me. Break my arm.
Son.
You just ruined everything. You just ruined everything for me. But even in that show, what transfers over is technique. And technique is, it's crystallized through years of just, wasting food or trying to find what tastes better, trying to make the most of what you have. So that's one. Two, what is most scarce is what actually dictates the culture. And scarcity is shown especially in food, given that, in every universe that I've seen in anime, there are finite resources.
Now,
Um,
actually, one thing that just occurred to me too is that, especially in the Isekais, they're not shy about, taking the local resource, i.e., like the monster they just killed or whatever, and cooking it.
right. Which is an interesting instinct to have, because you're not entirely sure that the monster in this universe, one, is compatible, good for food or whatever.
Yeah.
But they cook it the same way, over fire.
Yeah, and it's actually, crap. This got me another thought. It's like survival in the West is seen as like, oh, look at them frying that snake over the fire. They're hard bitten. They're struggling. Right? Which is not wrong, right? Because survival kind of sucks. But in anime, it's like, look at them. They got the fire going. They're just roasting something delicious over the fire, and it's just a completely different perspective on it, I suppose.
Yeah. Even that reminds me of the one thing that is never missing in a show, that has food in it, is the importance of the sharing of the food. And that can be shown in multiple ways. It can be shown in people are sharing food, awesome. Okay, I'm should be showing the people in the lack of sharing food. For example, if this was okay, you're gonna have to help me out here. It was a harem essentially with 5 sisters.
Oh, quintessential quintuplets.
Right, quintessential quintuplets.
I am so good, but so sad.
That was good. That was really good. But the reason I bring that up is because one of the more important scenes there was when the main character, the guy, or one of the 6 main characters, gets lunch. I mean, he's poor, and he has to make his way to go sit down, and there's no one to sit with, no one to eat lunch with. And this is not a primarily Japanese thing. It also, you see that in the US as well. Like, who am I going to eat lunch with? And there's something fundamental to the making of friends, because I guess essentially all culture is local, no duh, but it's also local in the individuals, right? So like how individuals treat food, aggregated up is you can call that culture. And if you notice how each individual in the show, or is in that specific scene, views both the food he's bought, where he's gonna sit, with whom he's gonna sit, like that whole thing is just laden with so much symbolism. There's like, I just want to numb and just let it go out the other way, and that to me is so striking.
You and I, we're a couple of interesting specimens, I suppose, because neither of us really like eating with other people.
No,
that we're not close to.
Right.
Heck, even with my family, like if you were to give me the option, I would usually take like eating separately to a certain extent. Because I just got this thing. I don't like really people watching me eat.
Same. I have this, actually, my saying is, eating in restaurants is insane if you're not a model or have any compunctions whatsoever.
Oh, there's foods I'm like, I'm not ordering that. I know exactly how that's gonna end.
Yeah. I did that once. I ordered wings at a get together, and
amateur hour.
Yeah, it was embarrassing.
But it's the shared that's I think right. You're pointing to a shared aspect of both, hemispheres, I guess, in the media, is that eating is a communal experience, and so the rejecting of someone eating with you signals things about your social standing.
Right.
So like in every anime, like the loner, he always has to go find some random spot to eat. And he's always brought into the fold when, no, come eat with us. Right? Same thing over here. And food, I think, is such a universally communal thing that translates more easily than I think anything else in anime. And that's probably why food is the most transferable of all goods. Because, like, even in the real world, for example, whenever a politician is defending, like, migration of different ethnic groups into a country. It doesn't matter where you're at. The thing they'll list first and foremost is that they bring so many good things culturally, like food. Which, as a voter, I don't give two rips about what food someone's bringing. But it's always brought up because that is the first thing people think of when they think of another group coming in. Because that's the most like readily apparent thing about their culture. Because like, describe to me what a Nigerian is. Someone from Nigeria. That's about the most brass tacks you're gonna get. But it's like, well, what does being Nigerian mean? I don't know.
Clothing. Like, yes, you can see it in how they music. Okay, I really love the point you're bringing up, because I think it just goes back to the point I brought up earlier with the foreigner. I think that deviations from the norm perform multiple functions. First function is to highlight the norm, right? Mm-hmm. So if you see in any show where food is important, so to bring up again quintessential quintuplets, his choice of food, or what he even buys, even Kaguya-sama, Love is War, even the bento box, like what's in the bento box, is so important. That at the end of the day, you answer the question, like, why does it matter so much that your culture had? Because, okay, what I'm getting at is this. This is where you can view food as functional, purely functional. I'm just getting calories to function. And then you can go one step further. I'm getting calories, but also I'm enjoying the mouth pleasure. But it seems like the importance of food is cranked to 1,000 in shows. And I don't quite know why. I mean, a lot of what we're talking about today is, obviously it's communal, always important, but it's like, why choose to emphasize that portion?
Shooting from the hip here, so there's no guarantee I'm even close to being right. It could be that Japan is such a busy culture in that people work a ton, they're busy with stuff, that the time when you can sit down and have a meal with other people is a treasured time.
Interesting. Then why wouldn't that apply in the US too? You get shows.
Maybe because we don't work as much. Like, we work a lot, like, especially compared to the Europeans. But they, like, for example, in Italy, Italy and Spain have like incredibly relaxed standards. So like, people will show up at work at like 9, they'll work for a couple hours, and they have like a long lunch, and then they go home and have a siesta or a nap, and then they come back and work a couple hours, and then they have dinner at like 9 o'clock at night. And so, like, now obviously that doesn't always happen. Duh, right? But that's what they like to do. That's the ideal. Some cultures don't really have breakfast, while other cultures really emphasize it. And so I think the way you consume your food really emphasizes how your culture is.
Exactly. And it almost like it's, maybe I came in with the wrong frame, and now I think what you just said is actually hinting at this for me. Maybe food doesn't make the culture. Maybe food is the symptom of the culture. Maybe it's not a symptom, maybe like an expression of the culture.
Well, that might be true because, like, let's take the United States. That's an easier example because we're both in it. How many quintessentially American dishes can you think of?
Maybe like 4, maybe.
Yeah, basically, you have burgers, pizza, hot dogs, and a few others. That's all foreign imports. That's German and Italian, right? And that's not like crapping on our culture, but it's just to say that no, we are a nation of immigrants. We have a crap ton of different cultures that bring their own food with them, and with pizza and burgers and stuff like that, the United States has taken them and just run with them and made them our own, right? Now I think, and this is happening in Japan too, unfortunately. Our food has gotten significantly less healthy over the years, with more and more people going out and eating and ordering in and all that stuff. And this is a symptom, I think, of a lack of knowledge, because I think a lot of people just don't know how to cook properly.
That's a good point.
But two, we're just busy, and so we have more money than time oftentimes. And so it's just easier just to order in rather than planning stuff out. It also signals that how child rearing is. So very few couples can have one partner stay home and thus be able to cook. Oftentimes it's both having to go work. So there's that.
Interesting. What's coming to mind right now is to actually break down food a bit more.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess you can see like two parts of the food. There's the spices, seasonings, there's the ingredients, and then there's the technique used to make the food. I think what transfers is the technique. Because not obviously that ingredients can transfer much, right? I mean, if you look at like Chinese food in the US, it's nowhere near authentic because you don't have all the there's a lot of stuff you don't have, like it can't make it all the way to the US. This is why every Nigerian I know is hunting for an African shop because the ingredients matter so much. So that's one. But what transfers is the technique. And this is why food obviously evolves, right? Because if what, obviously to a certain extent the ingredients matter, but if you're transferring the technique and you're retrofitting it to the resources you have available, you are essentially creating a different type of cuisine, right? Obviously the cuisine, I think the causality runs in both directions, where the technique or the food in the land dictates the technique and mechanisms for storage, but also the food, the technique available and the mechanism for storage, that kind of dictates what we choose to eat. And so when I'm thinking about shows where this is an important thing, I think what has been highlighted there is essentially what is able to make it the distance. What was able to make it so in the Isekai, as you know, I'm going to describe what an Isekai is to you, but it's essentially leaving an old world, living your normal world, and going to another world. Even if you're
Alice in Wonderland, effectively, an ordinary person going into an extraordinary world. Exactly.
And in that new world, we're seeing from the person who's come into the new world's perspective. We're not seeing from like the traditional people's perspective. And from that perspective, we're almost always struck by the fact that either through cultural evolution, a specific technique of making food has evolved, or it's transferred, which could be like almost a stand-in for what parts of other people's culture has influenced the specific culture. So I guess for listeners, or for me, when I'm watching an Isekai, one of the things I'm looking out for is what kind of food are they eating. If they're eating fried foods, that could mean, like what culture does a lot of fried foods? Say the US, right? Yeah. Actually, don't know what culture does a lot of fried foods. Or maybe like baking. Or a lot of baked foods are like, European, right? Obviously, because it's European.
Yeah.
And I would look out for more European influences in the show, or in that whole universe, because the technique that transfers essentially is saying something about the kind of influence, I guess, that is had on the maker of the show, but two, in I guess one, the maker of the show, and in how he interprets that into the show. Okay, I like that. I like that a lot. That will actually make me a better consumer. Funny, of isekais, because I now have a different way of appreciating or analyzing the show. What do you think?
I like your point of like, one thing that's common in anime is that if they're in another world and they're eating something, and they'll go, "Oh, it tastes like ... It's the constant relation of one thing to another, which I think is how you get food across cultures, right? So, like, I remember in college, like, you were we lived together for viewers. We lived together for like a year, 2 years,
2 years,
actually,
yeah.
2 years. It felt like 4.
Okay, screw you.
And so every week we would switch off cooking. What we did was we would cook like a massive meal and divide it up into containers for each day.
AKA meal prep.
Yeah, meal prep, right? So what Sanji would do oftentimes was he would make like some crazy like new meal that he discovered this recipe for. Me, I was pretty much like taco,
Potatoes.
spaghetti, taco.
Potato. I also did potatoes. I had pretty good potatoes that you baked.
Yeah, well, whatever. But me, I'm just like, basic. So I don't screw it up, basically, because I'm not that great of a cook. But I remember, like, when we would be, like, stalking through the aisles of Target, Walmart, and Sam's Club, trying to find the exact sauce we need for it. And, like, now, fortunately, we live in the modern world where we can get the exact sauce we need oftentimes. But going back to your point, like, it's impossible to get the same ingredients. Oftentimes, we'd be like, well, we don't have, I don't know,
Worcestershire sauce, whatever.
Spotted bird, I don't know, right?
Yeah.
First,
it's even better.
I don't know. I panicked, man. I panicked. And then we would just have to replace it with something that was similar, right? Now, undoubtedly, that affected taste. But we were making do with what we had.
Right.
So, like, where was I going with that?
Well, yeah, I mean,
it's like the adaptation is the name of the game.
Yeah, that's very true. Oh, yes, that's a really good point, because I guess another thing I'll look out for in anime or Isekais when I go back to watching them is in what ways the character or the characters adapt to the world they're in, right? Because like what you were getting at, what I also said was the hard thing to transfer is ingredients. The easiest thing to transfer is skills. Like, oh, you know, like the song, like the way you wash your hair or whatever, the way you brew your tea. I don't know. Like, they can't take it away from me, right? So it's the thing that is here. Like, I'm pointing to my head right now. Your noggin. That is what transfers. Essentially, human capital is what transfers, not the physical thing. And I am also now very much more curious to go watch Eminence in Shadow, because from what I'm hearing from you, he almost like he gets reverse Isekai'd, and to see how, you know, the things he's learned in the different world, how that transfers into his old world, and how and what exactly what part of his life changes because of what he knows, is now so interesting to me, because in that you see essentially what, like, you get more insight into the character, also more insight into the maker of the show too, because you're like, oh, okay, so this is there's a clear change. I think this is what travel does for people, right? You can see that it did for me. Go ahead.
Travel, in a sense, tempers. I'm sorry to interrupt you there, but
go ahead.
That goes off a really good point. Is, hey, travel broadens your horizons, man.
It's true though.
Right?
It did for me.
But it also tempers you, right? So you can get idealistic about another place or whatever, but then you go there and you're like, oh, they're just people. They're different people. They're unique people. They're interesting people, but they're just people.
Your dad said the exact same point when I asked him the same question. Yeah. People are people everywhere.
My parents went over to Africa recently.
Correct. So. They went to Kenya.
Yeah.
Yes, and
which is in Africa.
Yeah.
I'm smart.
Look at you. Look at you, right? Good job, bud.
Aw, hey, Pats.
But yeah, that I really like the way this. I didn't know where this was gonna go. just gonna go where it went. But I like this a lot because now I'm, at least for my mental model in watching anime, I now know a specific way I can explore to get smarter about watching it.
I didn't know where that conversation was gonna go, and that's a lot better than I thought it was.
Same. I'm 55 minutes. I thought we were gonna end like 20 minutes ago. I did not end 20 minutes ago. Good job. Because you're like.
No, I was like, Hail Mary pass.
Yeah. Good job. That was good.
Let's go.
All right. What I'm excited about. Do you want to do hour?
Oh yeah. What am I watching? Okay. This it's actually an exciting week. So this past week I finished Faraway Paladin season 2. Now, Faraway Paladin is in Isekai, although barely that, because the reincarnation it matters in the first couple of episodes, but then quickly fades in the background. I believe the original first season came out in 2022, if my memory serves me correctly, and I remember very much enjoying that show, and so I was very excited this past fall to hear that season 2 was coming out, and it did not disappoint. It was even better than the first season, so I highly recommend it. It's a slower paced anime, very Tolkien-esque in a way, but
how early
art
can you
looks
tell?
beautiful.
Oh, sorry for interrupting.
I'm sorry.
How quickly can you tell that it's a show worth watching?
I always have the 3-episode rule. Unless a show is particularly bad, then you kind of know in the first episode. But
okay,
3-episode rule is what I usually follow.
Clear.
And I find if I'm bored with the anime and I just don't want to watch, I'm not gonna watch it.
Move on.
There are
You are again. That is
literally
a
hundreds of. Thank you.
I hate to compliment you, but that is a genuine virtue. I try to inculcate in myself as well.
If you don't like a show, don't feel pressured to watch it, because it's a
same thing
show.
with books, people.
Yeah, just if you don't like, unless it's for school or something, then you have to.
Yeah. Do
it. But yeah, just
awesome.
Life's too short to be reading crap you don't want to watch. What?
That works. Move on. This is what.
That works.
Go read crap you don't want to watch.
Amen. But yeah, very excellent season. A lot of interesting philosophy. I'll have to think about it more. But yeah, I highly recommend Faraway Paladin season 2. I've also begun watching some of the shows that have just come out today for the winter season.
Holy moly, you're on
those
the
include
ball.
Darkness in My Heart season 2. Very good so far. I'm just about ready to watch Solo Leveling, which is a super hyped anime. So we're gonna have to see if it's good or not. I hope it is. That one's unique because it's based off a manhwa, not a manga.
Remind me the difference again.
Manhwa is from South Korea. So I really, this could be a whole topic in itself. I really love that the animation industry, I guess, is
expanding,
growing,
yes,
encompassing more cultures and countries. I think it's very cool. So
for sure. Quick recommendation there. Go watch Link Click. It is
Link Click. Oh, it's a Chinese one, right?
It's a Chinese one. It is so good and weird.
Interesting.
It's very good.
Cool. Good recommendation there. Then what else am I watching? That's the major ones I'm watching so far. So yeah,
awesome.
Really excited. I'll come up with an update next week.
Sounds good. Are you watching all the new ones, or are you watching the new ones you're the most looking forward to?
Any of them that catch my fancy. I know a couple of YouTubers, or don't know them, but I watch them, who will go through and watch a couple episodes of absolutely all of them, and I'm like, dear Lord, no, thank you.
Someday that'll be you,
bud. That's a lot of anime to watch. It's like there's like 30 or 40 that come out each season.
Holy moly, that's a lot. I think though, the more you watch, the better you get at watching it. So you might be able to know when you might know right away when something's not worth your while. I think you might get better, and more efficient at that.
I kind of, so I have two criteria. First, foremost is I'll be like, does it look interesting? And then I'll put it on the watch list and I'll try it. And then I wait for other people to have watched ahead of me on the other stuff that I'm not sure about to see if anything there's anything I missed. So it's kind of I guess it's methodical in that sense because I'm just like, look, there's too much for me to just get through. So basically, watch anything that catches my fancy.
Clear. Well, for me, shock of shocks, I finished Dune last week. Dune Chronicles Book 1 last week.
And you weren't fired. It's a miracle.
I wasn't fired. I have a lot of other books, and I've got a few thoughts about it that I might formalize in some form someday. But overall, it is a treatise or just almost a meditation and metacognition that I don't think I've gotten as much as I want to get from that book. I might go reread. If I knew I'm going to reread. But it is so good for for understanding what metacognition is and how much words matter too. Mm-hmm. So I was thinking about it. The three things that it teaches you. It teaches you how much words matter, how much words don't matter, and how much words that don't matter. It is quite deep for that reason. So that's what I finished. And then when I got done with that, I'll say burned out because that was a lot to read in a short time. That's for me.
For readers who don't know, that's nearly 1,000 pages that he read in about a week.
Right, and that was a lot, and I was a bit burned out from not from reading in general, it's from Dune, and so I've always wanted to go through quite a few essays. So there are some really important essays on the internet that, by John Stuart Mill, by Friedrich Hayek, that is just like sitting on the internet for free that I've not read.
I recommend Isaiah Berlin as well. Right.
Oh yes, I mean by essay, I mean I guess you can just look it up yourself. But one of them, one I'm reading right now actually is Knowledge and Society by Friedrich Hayek. But my what I did after reading is just to go through a lot of those essays that I've had on my reading list for a long time. Because while I am on the fiction kick, I usually alternate between fiction and nonfiction, but I've not alternated in fiction and nonfiction in a while. So I kind of needed my nonfiction fix, and so I just went through the essays. I highly recommend that, by the way, because you want to do a lot more reading, but you don't want to read current blog posts or whatever. Go read.
Friedrich Hayek is by and large one of the better ones.
Oh, for sure.
To read.
I mean, start with Road to Serfdom, in my opinion.
Yeah, Road to Serfdom is fantastic.
And also, if you want to change how I view the world, Knowledge and Society is extremely important. Okay, so while I was going about my day this week, I stumbled upon something that I'm just gonna play and then I'll talk about it later. Okay, so let's hope this works. And your listeners don't need sound for this.
You really don't want to hear pilots or streamers say that.
Oh yeah, true. All right, I'm gonna for Jake here. I'm gonna be looking in this direction for this whole thing, and I'll look back at you when I want or when I can.
Okay.
So I can, because I have it all set up now.
Fine.
Cool. All right, so I'm gonna skip ahead here. Cool. All right, I'm gonna share my screen with you.
Okay.
And then I'm gonna share my screen with the audience.
Ooh, getting fancy.
Yeah. Cool. All right. I hope they can see. I'm gonna drag us down. Cool. You can see it now. I'm gonna make it smaller. Cool. Do you see what I'm seeing? Are you ready? That was a lot of setup there.
Yes, I am.
So I'm just gonna play it. It's quite long, so I'll just play a few minutes of this. And then we can talk, and just tell me to pause whenever you want. So,
Gotcha. Thank you for zooming in, person. I appreciate that.
yeah, that was timely.
Hey, Japanese bows are so interesting to me because of how long they are.
Interesting. Would you not expect them to be so long?
It's very. If you look, I'm a history nerd, so I see a lot of different weapon types. They're usually very similar because there's only so many ways to, peel a banana, so to speak. But you have some, like the Mongols, for example, used bows that were comparatively quite tiny. Those actually look a lot like English longbows to a certain extent.
And those, we mean the one in this what we're watching right now?
Yeah, the ones we are watching right now. I believe I'm not an archery expert, so take everything I say with a massive amount of salt. But I believe the larger the bow, the bigger the capability for range and power. I'm not sure if that's true or not.
Interesting.
But that's what I believe the case is.
Awesome.
So freaking regal.
Right. One of the things I was waiting for you to say. This is a competition. This is like for first place right now. We're watching. I'm gonna pause here real quick. Thoughts so far?
Very ceremonial. I imagine a lot of that comes from the Tokugawa era, because during the Tokugawa era, so under the Tokugawa shogunate, or Tokugawa Bakufu, this was started by Tokugawa Ieyasu, and he was one of the three unifiers of Japan. And so after he unified Japan, all matters of military, samurai, etc., came under an extreme amount of social control and ceremony and regulation. And so I imagine a lot of this came from that period, actually.
Interesting.
Maybe I'm wrong, but that's at least my perspective.
I'll play a few more minutes of this.
Being ranked not only on their archery, but on their ceremony as well. Interesting.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure you're gonna be reminded of something right now when he starts to take a shot. You'll see, from one of the favorite animes of all time, reminiscence of
Yeah, it's got to be so freaking stressful.
I know. And he hasn't even taken a shot yet. He's been like almost 3 minutes. And no, there's no bonfire after this where like high schoolers come and dance or something. And so you're thinking
I wish.
Kaguya-sama
Well,
love
yeah.
is war lover.
I'm just looking for flaming arrows at this point.
Right here, isn't that giving isn't it reminding you of Kaguya-sama?
Yeah, well,
The girl.
so the unique aspect of a Japanese bow is that the notch is very low on it. Like, so normally on the bow, it's about halfway up, but that is on like the lower third.
Interesting.
So I really wonder why that is, actually. And I don't know if that guy is either like deceptively small in that he's freakishly strong, or if that's a very lightweight bow.
So many questions.
Yeah.
This guy shoots in a weird way. He takes his time in this one.
Don't blame him.
And then there's an ad. Well, I guess that's a good place to stop it too.
Huh.
So,
It's truly, I guess, the greatest definition I've seen so far of martial and art.
yes. Yes. One of the things that, okay, I'm gonna move back here. Like, one thing that struck me about this, oh golly, there we go. One thing that struck me about this is there is one. It's beautiful to watch. Like, there was no sound on that, and every single moment of that was captivating. And it makes you wonder about how much order is necessary for something that's entirely chaotic, right? So imagine this was an actual war, right? And they walk in the same way, in the same gliding way they do, and then they do all that ritual. Like some guerrilla force of just brutal people, just like Vikings, for example, just go and just destroy.
Yeah.
But there's something in a way fatalistically beautiful about their insistence that everything has to be in its proper place. It reminds me of the Japanese perfection, where, I mean, first of all, if you're trying to perfect sushi, good job doing it. But other parts of your culture dies if you put perfection as a god. But my goodness, if perfection is your god in this sense, in something that's so culturally rich that's called Kyudo, by the way. You can watch a lot of videos of that on YouTube. You get something striking in its cultural significance, also striking in what it is they're aiming at, essentially.
It kind of makes me re-examine myself to a certain extent, actually. So
In what way?
we both practice Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, right? And you always making a point when you enter the gym to do a bow to the wall and all that stuff, and before entering the mat, and entering and exiting the mat. I don't do that, right? And there are different gyms with different standards. So some gyms are like, hyper traditional, like, no, this is what you do, this is how you do it, this is the way you do it, right? But then there are others that are more median, and then there are others that just don't give a crap, right? And I think it's a lovely example of the conflict between martial and art, right? So martial arts is like it encompasses a lot of things. It goes from everything as useless as Tai Chi to something as brutally efficient as MMA.
Krav Maga. MMA works too.
And there's always that conflict between them, because I guarantee they would not have done any of that. Maybe the draw, perhaps, during combat, That just wouldn't have happened. But there's something in humanity that makes us, even in the most violent, brutal things, want to create something artistic in it. I think it was C.S. Lewis who said, they braided their hair at Troy. They sang songs at Thermopylae and all that stuff. Like, just pointing out that oftentimes people see war and they're like, well, why are people doing that? That's frivolous. And his point is like, look, people are people. They want to act like people, even in the worst circumstances, right? And so you definitely don't want to be too artistic in your martial prowess, because then it becomes useless. But I don't think it's right to go completely the other direction.
Wonderful.
Because then you kind of lose the soul of it to a certain extent.
This is what I love talking to you about stuff like this, because that's a really wonderful point. I guess there's a way you can view this show, or view this I guess martial art, or what we just saw, as a tribute to times lost, right? So no, I don't need to tell you this, but no one has need anymore during war for people who are archers in that sense. There's guns, there's snipers, like there's drones. Like, war is so gone past that. But even in the way they take their culture seriously, this is why I'm so interested in Japanese culture, man. So, if you even observe, everything is perfect. I mean, obviously with human imperfection, with the way your hands are shaking, but there's that, like, we're aiming for perfection. If you even look at the hem of their call it, I don't know what it's called. I'm gonna ruin their culture, but skirt, essentially, like their
kimono, I think.
Kimono, sure. Yeah. If you look at the hem of that,
you can tell I'm a Star Wars nerd.
you look at the hem of that. It's at the exact spot, and the hem of their shirt. It's the exact spot on different body sizes, as you could tell from that. But it's all perfect. The entrance is perfect. The socks are pristine white, even though they're gliding your foot on the hardwood floor. Like, just, I think this is one thing I think is quite lost in city culture I live in at the moment. It's just the single-minded focus of being extremely good at a thing.
Yeah, and it's funny because you respect the hell out of people who can be, though, right? Our old coach, Kensei. His real name's Ken, but we call him Kensei.
See, we're cool like that.
Like, that man, I'm a skinny dude. I'm about $155, $160. He's even smaller than I am, and he can kick anybody's butt in that gym. Why? Because he has focused on his art for over 30 years. That is collectively like tens of thousands of rolls, probably, that he's done. And he always described how he doesn't, like, I personally like training by rolling, right? I like the dynamism. I like having the stress test stuff. But he brought up a good point. He's like, I don't mind doing the drills. He's like, I don't mind doing them over and over and over again. There's on YouTube. I highly recommend the series. It's on Daisy, the documentary by Flow Grappling on Daisy Fresh, which is down in Illinois, right?
Yeah, I think it's.
Can't remember. It's near St. Louis.
It is Illinois.
Yeah, I think it's just north of St. Louis, but it's still in Illinois. But it's these jujitsu meatheads who I don't know if they still do, but they operate out of this old laundromat called Daisy Fresh. And I guess that's like the most apt description of aestheticism that you can get when it comes to jiu-jitsu, because there are guys who live on the mats. Like, they got their sleeping bags or whatever, and then during the day they just roll them up and they train all day. And there's that, you respect the hell out of it because there's that single-minded drive, going monk, effectively, on your art form. Because, like, as a Thomas Sowell always likes to say, there are no solutions, only trade-offs. Right? So to focus on one thing is necessarily to neglect other things. That's why monks, went, no matter what religion you're in, go and ensconce themselves into, like, temples or cathedrals or whatever,
Forsake
right?
the world, yeah.
Because they needed that single-minded focus on the divine.
This is exactly why I chose Zoro last week, and last week referencing our last week's episode, the New Year's episode. Go watch it; it's great. Because Zoro. So obviously, Luffy is his single-minded focus has become the Pirate King.
Yeah.
But Zoro's goal is different. His goal is mastery. Be master of the sword, to be the greatest swordsman ever. And he gives up everything for this. Even that irons out his ideals, that irons out his pursuits. Everything he does is to gain mastery. There's something fundamental about that orientation in a person.
It's picking up your cross, fundamentally.
It's almost like, when we think about Eastern religions and how, like, not just not a dig against them, but it's like the one that's sent to a different plane of existence, essentially, where it's like they become enlightened. I think there is a microcosm of that in someone who is so single-mindedly focused on the achieving of mastery in a specific domain, foregoing everything else. Because Zoro, other than sword fighting, is useless. He can't cook. All he does is work out and practice the sword, essentially. And he ends up becoming this, obviously. A spoiler. He is so good at what he does that he strikes fear in the minds of everyone who's also aiming at the thing. And when I watch a show like this, I'm like, you're not making money off of, maybe you are making money, I don't know, but you're not like world renowned like a basketball player is or something.
Well, it's like, to take a more pertinent example to us, it's like Mr. Beast. He describes, he did a Joe Rogan interview one time. And he describes how, like, when he went to community college for a little bit, but he just, like, blew off all his classes, and he and his friends sat there and tried to go viral on YouTube. And he's describing, like, well, it's all about, like, the color composition of the thumbnail, and he's just, like, going all into this minute detail. Basically stuff like a advertising specialist would tell you. Because he's become so ensconced in producing YouTube videos that in his mind he cannot slack off. And you see that even today. He keeps doing crazy challenges and stuff like that. And he's even expanded out to philanthropy and stuff like that. And they're all crazy in what they do. All because I think he has that little thing in the back of his head that says, you're not done yet. There are many examples of, like, YouTubers that for a long time were very, very successful, but then after a while they just start phoning it in because they're like, I'm already here. And that leads to their downfall, right? It's the same thing with sports. Like, if you start slacking off even for a second, someone is going to come up behind you and break your knee. And keep going ahead of you.
Not to reference too much MHA, because we do this in every single episode. But this is the difference between All Might and Endeavor.
Yes. I was just thinking of that too. Look at that, twinsies. Stop. I just ruined your day a little bit.
No, you did that like 5 hours ago, you guy. But yeah, I'm quite struck. Whenever I watch stuff like that, I'm almost my jaw's on the floor because I'm like, these are people who are truly committed to something,
They're masters at it.
The masters at it, and it is a torch that's been passed down through how many years?
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm every time I interact with the Japanese culture, I am just blown away at how rich it is. And with that, we are almost an hour and 30 minutes into this episode. With that, we're gonna say thanks for watching and listening.
Sayonara.
See you next week for another installment of BBP. Talk to you later.